No HUD, no in-game quest log, no in-game map, just me, a notebook and a giant open world to get lost in. But is this even possible? Is the game good enough designed to make it through without hold-handing support from the developers? So I came up with the question, can you beat The Witcher 3 using nothing but a real notebook? Our journey began in White Orchard, a quiet village caught between war and occupation, where Vesemir and I searched for a trace of Yennefer. Our first clue pointed us towards a Nilfgaardian camp. The commander there, were we told, held the answers we needed. Vesemir gave the suggestion,
"We'd rather not draw any attention,"
which we directly ignore. That's when the real odyssey began. Without the HUD, without a map, the world suddenly felt massive and disorientating. At midday, I stopped and watched the sun until I could work out where south was. My first clumsy steps towards navigation in this world on my own. My path west led me into the woods, where I stumbled upon a village abandoned and cursed. A spirit bonded to a well lingered there, a whisper of tragedy in the ruins. Using my Witcher senses, I could uncover her story, broke the curse and pressed onward. Further north, I finally reached the Nilfgaardian camp. The commander promised me answers about Yennefer, but at a price. I had to slay the griffin terrorizing the region. To prepare, I needed help from a hunter and an alchemist.
Mislov. He has a hut south of the village, very near the wood. Go to Tomira, an herbalist. She lives near the crossroads. She will aid you.
At least that's what I was told. The reality? Both leads were completely off. The alchemist was nowhere near where she was told to be, but instead not far from the Nilfgaardian camp. The hunter's house I only discovered by an accident, wandering along the northern road, instead finding it in the south of the village as I got told. Piece by piece the clues came together. The griffin was a royal beast, a male whose mate had been killed. I dove into the river to gather the buckthorn and finally had what I needed. But before facing the monster, there were always distractions. An old woman desperate for her frying pan, a lost brother at the battlefield. Schematic of Witcher gear hidden away in forgotten chests. When the time came, Vesemir and I faced the griffin and brought him down. Its severed head delivered to the commander, he finally gave us the truth. Yennefer was in Vizima. As we returned to the tavern, Nilfgaardian riders arrived, with Yennefer herself among them. She said that the emperor demanded my presence. And just like that, White Orchard was behind me. Not just a prologue, but my first trial in this strange way of playing. With no guidance, no markers. Just intuition, memory, and the occasional glance at the sun. 2 filled pages of notes, and the realization that every step would be harder and far more immersive than I have imagined. Arriving in Vizima, we were led to the Emperor himself, and as the confident witcher I am, I couldn't resist a bit of verbal sparring with him, until he finally revealed what he wanted from me.
My daughter Cyrilla, she's returned. And she's in danger. The wild hunt pursues her.
His demand was simple, but very heavy. Find his daughter, Ciri. She trusted only Yennefer and me, and that made us his only hope. Since Ciri is like a daughter to us as well, we accepted. Together with Yennefer, we aligned our next steps, tracing the path from the Emperor's merchants had uncovered. My first destination would be Velen, where a man named Hendrik might hold clues. The second, Novigrad, where Triss, our old flame, had made herself a home in the city main square. Meanwhile, Yennefer would sail to Skellige. Drawn by a magical explosion, she was certain was tied to Ciri. With the plan set, we were ready to depart. At least, almost, because here I had to bend one of my own rules. The map, something I swore to ignore, was now unavoidable. Some parts of the story simply forced it to use. So for these rare moments, I allow myself to use it, only to move between regions when necessary, never to guide me in the world itself. And so, with a fresh purpose, crucial information, and the bandit rule, we left Vizima behind. Ahead lay the first true step of our journey, the war-torn lands of Velen. Arriving here, I couldn't help to marvel at the endless landscape. I ran along the southern path for what felt like an hour, hyped by the sheer size of the region. In my first playthrough, I had been too glued to the minimap to notice half of it, but this time, everything felt new. I had no idea where Hendrik was hiding, so I drifted through the villages, until a tavern innkeeper told me he lived behind the hill and that he has seen a strange glow at dawn. My first instinct, climb at the rooftops, scan the horizon, even meditate until the morning to catch the glimpse of the glow. But nothing, not even close. Instead, Every path that I followed dragged me straight into camps of monsters and bosses I absolutely wasn't ready for. Brute forcing my way up every hill, convinced it might be the hill, I ended up far south at the abandoned snowy village, nowhere near I should have been. The innkeeper's direction made no sense, but eventually I scrapped together a clue about a baron and the witch in the swamps. At least the baron's keep was visible even from the tavern, so I headed there. The baron confirmed Ciri had been at his keep. She escaped the swamps with a girl named Greta. But of course, he wouldn't spill all the details without a favor, finding his missing wife and daughter. Everyone around him claimed to know nothing, until I picked up a medallion, a gift from a Pella. Where he was? No clue. And that's where my nightmare truly began. I searched the entire south, east and even north, right up to Oxenfurt. Dozens of accidental side quests fell into my lap while I was just trying to get back on track. Why not to the west, you ask? Because I found the swamps east from the Baron's Keep. My only hints were at this point, Ciri fled a swamp and the Pella lived in the woods. Made sense, right? Wrong. After exploring half of Velen, the Pella turned out to be right behind the next village west of the Baron's Keep. When I finally found him, saved his goat and revealed the Baron's wife was pregnant and that the spirit or blood of a buried stillborn child might lead us to her. On my way back to the Baron, I got lost. Again, and somehow stumbled into Kiramets. There I at least found a thread about Ciri. A masked elf had tried to trade something with her, but vanished. Thankfully this time, the game spared me the hunt. With Kira I was portaled straight into the Elven runes, where the Wild Hunt was already searching. Through holographic messages, we learned more about Ciri's path. Killed a Wild Hunt rider and Kira hinted at another lead. The Crones of Crookback Bog. But back to the Baron. Armed with news about the child and his wife, I chose to kill the cursed child outright. I returned with the blood to the Pella, completed his ritual, who pointed me then towards two men named Wojtek. Hours of wandering later, I finally found the fisherman Wojtek near a village I must have crossed 50 times already. He told me how, on the night they fled, he saved Tamara, the daughter, and smuggled her to Oxenfurt. But Anna, the wife, had been dragged into the woods by a monster. Again back to the Baron, more bargaining and more fragments about Ciri. But now I was so done with this endless chase that I flat out told him to go to hell. He returned the favor,
Fuck you!
But still, he gave me a pass to Oxenfurt and Novigrad if I changed my mind to look out for his daughter. And if you think this is where things got easier, oh no. The game seemed determined to troll me. Suddenly everywhere I looked were clues Wojtek described. Headless horses, traces of fights, and way too much more dead ends. Hours later, I ran into a cursed tree whispering promise to kill the crones if I set him free. I killed it, on the spot, hoping that would trigger progress. Small spoiler, it didn't. Instead, after yet another round of frustration, I accidentally triggered a cutscene by reading an old quest letter in my inventory at a chapel in the swamps, not far from the tree. Hours wasted, all because the game decided that this was a hidden trigger. From there, I met the children in the swamps, the voiceless godling Johnny, and finally the crones themselves. They revealed Anna was tied to them with a mark on her hand. The Baron's wife, enslaved, at last, pieces fell together. I told the Baron, he begged me to help him save her. And at first, I refused again because I had my final information about Ciri, and that she went to Novigrad. But in the end, I gave in. At the chapel we confronted the Eternal Fire fanatics, Tamara among them openly disowned her father, and we freed Anna, but her mind was broken, shattered under the crone's grip. The Baron took her, swearing to find a cure. And with that, Velen's chapter finally closed. 8 pages of madness, 3 or 4 mental breakdowns, countless time lost. But maybe, in some twisted way, this is what being a witcher really feels like. Wandering aimlessly, searching blindly for clues, piecing together scraps of truth until a story finally takes shape. After the endless swamps and open plains of Velen, I thought Novigrad would be a blessing. A compact city, tightly built, where progress would be finally come easier. At first, it almost felt like that. I spent my first hours wandering through every valley, every crooked market street, sketching my own map of the city. A map I would never use again, because by the time I was finished, Novigrad's streets had already carved themselves into my memory. Confident, I walked to the main square and began the story. But Novigrad had its own way to humble me. One of the earliest quests demanded that I chase down a thief. Simple enough. Except that I didn't know I had to follow him immediately. I lost sight of him within seconds. I assumed I could pick up his trail with my Witcher senses, but I couldn't. For nearly 2 hours, I circled the same streets, trying to reset the scenario, desperately searching for the moment where I had gone wrong. That was only the beginning. Meet me east of the harbor, they told me. East meant south. Go to Rosemary and Thyme. No clue where to look. Meet me in the district, a name I had never even heard before. Every step forward felt like a trick, every direction like a riddle, and with no minimap to fall back on, I began to doubt myself. Maybe I really was too dumb for this. Maybe this entire challenge was doomed from the start. And then came the weight of Novigrad's endless conversations. Until now, my notes were short, quick sketches, fragments. But here, I was terrified of missing even the smallest clue. So I wrote down everything, every detail, every name, every sentence, page by page, until my notebook swelled with crumpled lines and arrows. And still it wasn't enough. There were moments where I wandered aimlessly for half an hour, notes in my hand, searching for a solution that never came. And in these moments, standing lost in the streets of Novigrad, I truly broke. I felt like the fight drained out of me. I thought about closing the notebook, turning off the game, and ending the run right here. The idea of pressing on without a minimap, without certainty, with only doubt and scribbled words to guide me, felt impossible. But somehow, I didn't stop. I keep pushing, quest by quest, note by note, until slowly, painfully, the chaos gave me clarity. I helped Triss smuggle the mages out to safety, I freed Dandelion from the eternal fire, and finally, I saw the path that led me to Yennefer and Skellige. By the time I left Novigrad, my notebook overflowed with 9 full pages of notes and a hand-drawn map of the city, already 35 hours into the run, of wandering, confusion and despair. Yet as I closed the chapter, being able to solve all challenges that were thrown at me, I no longer felt like I was surviving by chance. I felt like I had earned it, and with that sparked a fragile but powerful flame. Maybe I really can beat this game with nothing but my notebook. Skellige, a place I remembered only as a cluster of shattered islands, a harsh and fragmented land. I thought it would become my next great challenge. But instead, it surprised me. What I expected to be another trial of confusion turned out to be the beginning of pure luxury, at least in terms of guidance. For the first time in this run, I wasn't stumbling blindly through vague directions or riddles of geography. Yennefer was with me every step of the way. We never left each other's side. No cryptic, meet me there. No endless wandering. Instead, should we go there together? Just like with Keira Metz earlier, but this time even more constant. Even with her presence, my morale skyrocketed. Together we searched for clues about Ciri. Step by step, the picture became clearer, until we reached the revelation. That strange, twisted creature we had once encountered at the Baron's Keep. Uma might be just the key to finding her. From there, everything moved quickly. After deciding our next step with Yennefer, she went ahead to Kaer Morhen, while I returned to the Baron's Keep to retrieve Uma. Yes, for the second time in this journey, I had to use fast travel. And if you see how I struggled with it, forgetting entirely that I had to use a signpost, you'd understand that I truly haven't cheated once. With Uma and Tao, I rode across the lands, bound for Kaer Morhen, as we prepared to solve the final mystery that would at least lead us to her. Only 1.5 pages of notes, 3 hours in, and just as quickly I had arrived, I left Skellige behind. After the chaos of Novigrad and the unexpected ease of Skellige, Kaer Morhen felt like something different altogether. A place where the story finally slowed down, just enough to breathe, yet at the same time pushed forward with a sense of inevitability. For once, I wasn't chasing vague directions or second-guessing cryptic clues. Everything here was clear, direct and powerful. The preparations to lift Uma's curse filled the halls with purpose. Lambert and Eskel, characters I had barely spent any time with before, suddenly became vivid parts of the world. Their banter, their small stories and the presence, all of it reminded me why I had fallen in love with this game in the first place. Kaer Morhen didn't just feel like a stronghold, it felt like home. But the comfort shattered as soon the truth emerged. Uma wasn't just some twisted creature. He was Avalach, the elven sage, and he carried the final clue to Ciri's location, the Isle of Mists. The name alone was enough to bring my anxiety floating back. Another vague place, another endless search across the seas of Skellige. I was already picturing myself circling aimlessly for hours, and with no guidance from the firefly I expected, how would I ever find this place? But then, against all odds, instinct guided me straight there. No maps, no markers, just a hunch, and somehow it was right. The isle looked ordinary, but the weight of what it held was anything but. A hut of dwarves barred their doors until I brought their friends back, and when I finally stepped inside, there she was, Ciri, still, silent, lifeless. For a moment, I thought it was the end of everything. But then when the firefly stirred, its light pulled her back. Uma's strange curse had hidden her, kept her safe from the wild hunt. And now, at last, she was free. The reunion could have been the end of my journey, but instead, it was the calm before the storm. Back at Kaer Morhen, we forged a desperate plan to lure the wild hunt into a trap. The battle that followed was brutal. Half of an hour the fortress was in shambles. Vesemir fell, and Ciri's grief exploded into uncontrollable fury, her power threatening to consume us all, until Uma intervened one final time. The wild hunt retreated, but their shadow loomed larger than ever. We buried our friend Vesemir, and with that, Kaer Morhen was behind me. 2 pages in my notebook, one of the most emotional chapters yet, and the reminder that from here on, the stakes would only climb higher. Ciri had grown tired of running. Together we made it for Bald Mountain, determined to strike down IMMERSIVE and the crones of Crookback Bog, once and for all. The strangest part? We settled who would face whom with the game of rock, paper, scissors. Hardly the heroic choice one would expect before a life or death battle. For the first time in this run, the fights truly pushed me. These weren't enemies who went down after a couple of quick attempts. They hit hard, and they demanded focus. Victory really felt earned. With Bald Mountain behind us and Kaer Morhen still fresh in my mind, I was sure the end was near. The wild hunt was in sight, and the final confrontation felt only a step away. Full of anticipation, I returned to Novigrad, ready to gather allies and assemble the force that would end it all. But instead of momentum, I found a wall of delays. What should have been the ramp up to the climax turned into a long stretch of fillers. Yes, I know these missions were meant to show the past choices shaped the world, to tie up loose ends, to give weight to my decisions. But in practice, they only dragged out the pacing. The fire that had been lit at Kaer Morhen and stoked at Bald Mountain sputtered into frustration. The tasks themselves were easy enough, straightforward even. I barely filled a page and a half in my notes, and yet I felt my excitement slipping away. Every step forward seemed buried under another, just one more side obligation. And then came Skellige, another round of quests. Another page and a half spent on side plots that felt stretched far too thin. Find the Sunstone, speak with the Emperor, rescue yet another mage. By this point, I didn't even bother to complain about the misleading directions anymore. It had become too familiar a pain to dwell on. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of busy work, the last box was ticked. The path to the final assault was open. At long last, the end game awaited. The end began not with Eredin, but with a sorcerer of portals, an obstacle that fell on my second attempt. What lay beyond was a true test, the longest, most demanding fight of the run, a duel with Eredin himself. Steel rang against frost, and blow by blow, the commander of the Wild Hunt finally fell. Victory should have felt absolute, but instead, the world itself began to unravel. Uma, the creature we have trusted, saved, even carried across kingdoms, revealed his betrayal. He had never been our key to Ciri, but a parasite seeking to bend her to his will. I reached him with sword in hand, ready to end it in rage, when Ciri appeared. She stopped me, calm and resolute, and spoke of her choice, to face the white frost, to banish it forever. It was not for me to decide, it was her will, and so I let her go. What followed was silence. And then White Orchard, changed, subdued, now under the rule of the eternal fire. It felt smaller than I remembered, and yet heavier with meaning. There, a blade we had commissioned was waiting, not for me, but for her. And so, in the very tavern where it all began, the circle closed. Across the same wooden tables, I placed the sword in Ciri's hands, not as a daughter, not as a ward, but as a witcher who would walk the path in my instead. The story of Geralt of Rivia had led to this, an ending not of monster slain, but of passing the torch. After being roughly 70 hours in this run, I actually did it. I finished The Witcher 3 using nothing but my own notes. Let me in the comments know if you have believed this is possible or not. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider to subscribe. I've made my struggle more than clear throughout this run, but I can honestly say I haven't felt this kind of joy in finishing a game for a very long time. This challenge showed me an entirely new way to play, one that cuts through the age of second screens, speedruns and skipping dialogues, and instead forced me to slow down, pay attention and just enjoy the world. To explore naturally, without a map pinging me every 5 seconds, without markers screaming where to go. What I missed, but what I found stayed with me.